Hello and welcome to Changing World. My name is Anthony Smith, and today I'm here with an Indian-born British national by the name of Raj Adwani, who spent his first 25 years of his life living in Mumbai. He's lived 8 years in the UK now, but prior to that he actually lived in Tenerife, out in Spain in the Canary Islands, and he had a tourism business there for around about 14 years. He also has a career background in engineering and subsequently moved into retail business. He has a lifelong interest in history, which has kind of developed into a strong interest in modern politics. For several years now he's been a member of UKIP and is an active follower of their views. So welcome, Raj, and thank you for coming here today.
Hello, Anthony. It's nice to be here and share my views on the national politics in this program. I would like to add one thing that not many people know, that I coincidentally share my date of birth, year of birth and month of birth with UKIP's former leader, Nigel Farage.
Right, so that's an interesting fact not many people know. So did you actually meet Nigel Farage?
Yes, I met him in 2014 in Doncaster Conference, National UKIP Conference. So it was a great pleasure to meet someone with whom I share the same views, same passion for the country. And it's so nice to hear him speaking always, and he has been saying quite a few good things which is beneficial to our country.
Very good. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and as I say, that's a kind of a little coincidence there, which is not the sort of thing that you generally expect. So I'd like to start by asking you a few questions, which I'm sure you'll be interested to answer. Now, the first question I've got here is, with your study of world history, how has this shaped your particular view about modern day politics?
Right from the childhood, I had interest in history because I like reading. And whenever I read a history book, even if it was in the school or in college, it evoked interest in certain subjects. So when I came to live in UK, I used to go out to my local libraries and get some history books and read it. And I started learning more and more about what was British history, which, living in a different country, you do not actually come to know. So it helped me, and it made me realize that this was a very democratic country, which gives its citizens all the rights, all the freedom of expression. And that's the greatest thing. I have never ever seen something like this in any part of the world. So, going further from there, slowly I discovered, and I wanted to know how British democracy came into existence. And this is what I discovered by reading a lot of different books from our local libraries. And the greatest thing what I have heard is that the worldwide democracy is actually the development how British democratic society has evolved. So the world owes a lot to the British democratic process and the British democratic institutions. What we see in world today is the extension of what we have in this country.
Okay.
Anthony, in return to answering the question which you have posed, there are series of events of world history which have shaped my political views, and one of them is the struggle between King Henry VIII and the Church, which has had a huge bearing on the democratic world we live in today.
Okay.
From that time, I can say the democracy started taking shape. And the parliament became most powerful institution, giving the people the voice to express their voice and the views. So I have always enjoyed reading history because I think it gives you a greater understanding of how the world has shaped up, what are the current trends in the politics and where they originate from. And it's always good to know these things because this gives you a firm belief in the current democratic process and the current democratic world we are living in.
That's right, Raj. Well, I would like to get on to ask you, how has living in other countries given you a different perspective on politics and economics? Because obviously you've experienced those processes going on in, several different countries, including your original country, which is India. How has that given you your particular perspective?
Having lived in 3 different countries for substantial amount of time, I would like to say one thing, that politics in India very much is shaped up after what is in Britain. It was definitely in Spain when I lived that the politics was different. It used to be completely different setup. I met whole lot of people. I had some political friends also there, and what I tried to gather from there, they have relatively new democracy which was just formed in 1975. So I tried to get more and more insight with the people there, how they were feeling, what they were doing. And I remember very clearly one thing: when European currency was introduced, people were not consulted at all about that. And all of a sudden, when we changed over from pesetas into euros, the cost of living shot up from 30 to 40% higher, which made people feel very, very shocked. Although it was something new, they welcomed it. But once the currency had taken hold, it really put people in a very difficult situation. And I personally think that what Spain is going through today is partly responsible is the change over the currency of pesetas into euro. So living over there, I have spoken to many people. I understand the language. I speak Spanish language, and I have seen one thing, that people are not very happy about this changeover of currency. It has severely affected them. It has stretched their pockets to a greater extent. Earlier, people used to live within the means and yet save something, and the things were not expensive in Spain. I think most of the people would recall British people who lived or who traveled when Spain used to have pesetas as a currency. Mm-hmm. A pound would fetch almost 260 pesetas, and even a bottle of beer would have been much cheaper than a pound. And that was the greatest thing. All of a sudden, when the currency changed, everything changed into 2 euros, like say for a bottle of beer, easy to relate something. And that is how the economy has taken a hit in Spain. Mm-hmm. Everything has become so expensive. People generally complain that they can't find to reach a month end. And that's a very difficult scenario. So personally, I think that forming a European community, I personally think, has not done greater thing to most of the countries.
Okay, Raj. Well, I certainly take your point on that. Where some countries have come out of it worse than others, obviously. Now, what made you decide to support the view of UKIP?
When I came to UK, I've got habit of searching more details on YouTube or on internet. I came across the first video of Nigel Farage, which he was speaking in European Parliament.
Okay.
And I thought what he said made a point.
Right.
And coincidentally, I met some friends. They were part of UKIP. So during a conversation, it came up that they were the political party which was trying to take Britain out of European Union. As I lived previously in Spain, and the opinion of people was against the European Union, and I thought that Britain was also going through the same thing. I realized one thing very clearly, that being the part of European Union was restricting Britain in its worldwide trade.
Right.
Yeah. So I went for one of the meetings of UKIP and I listened. I heard everything. They are a very nationalistic party. What they think of Britain is, I would say honestly and in a straightforward manner, is much more bigger than what other parties would think of their country. So I was happy and I'm happy to be a part of UKIP and their philosophy about this country, because I've lived in this country, this is my country, and the most important thing is defending the national interests. And being part of UKIP has also shown me that equality and everyone comes at the same platform to express their views. This is what is most important thing. What is said about UKIP that it is a racist party, that's not true. I've been there, I've seen it, I've tasted it, and I can tell everyone honestly, it's not so. They are nationalistic party. I'm a nationalistic person. Hence, I share their views in a simple and a straightforward manner.
Okay, you put your point across very, very well there, Raj. Now I'd like to come on to something a bit more specific here and ask you, what is your view about staying in the single market?
Anthony, single market is very, very important to us. Our proximity to European continent. Just remember one thing, we just broke away as a continent from them 10,000 years back. Yeah? But we have natural affinity towards European community. We have sacrificed 500,000 of our soldiers and our citizens to defend European liberty. We incurred $120 billion debts, which, interesting to tell you, many people would not know, that the last installment of that was paid on 31st December 2006, being 83 million pounds to US. So it has taken us almost 41 years to pay back the debts we incurred to defend Europe. Hence, single market is very important to us. What we produce, what services we provide from UK are benefiting Europe. In as much as we are benefiting from Europe, they are benefiting largely. Now, if you look at the statistics from the government's point of view, is we import from Europe more than what we export to Europe. We incur a deficit, and we have incurred the deficit right from the time we joined European community. There are statistics available through House of Commons, and everyone can look at it, that we have never ever traded positively with European community. Yet, being in that market is fundamental, because at the end of the day, they are our neighbors. We require from them and they require from us. Mm-hmm. And it is of mutual benefit. Now, it is also important to know that whilst we became the part of European community, we started trading less than the rest of the world, which is a profitable business to us. So we export more to the rest of the world and we import less, generating a net revenue. But that's not the case with the European market. Within Europe, Germany is the biggest country or the country which generates the biggest trade surplus. Even smaller countries like Czechoslovakia, Poland, they generate a trade surplus. We don't have to be the part of European community, but we can certainly should have the access to the single market. As Norway has done, as Switzerland has done, they have trade surplus with Europe. And they are European neighbors. So I don't see anything wrong in being associated with the European single market, but politically, no. We should not be governed by them politically. Norway does very good trade with Europe, and they have a positive trade favoring Norway, and so is Switzerland. I think we should be able to achieve the same thing for United Kingdom. I would always advocate to be part of single market and yet trade with the rest of the world, because that's how we can generate revenues for this country.
Okay, Raj. Well, thank you for putting your point of view across on that. I have another question for you here, which regarding the process we're going through right now. Do you think a hard Brexit is going to put jobs and businesses in this country at risk?
I personally think there is a lot of showmanship going on across the European continent. So we are not agreeing for certain thing. They are not agreeing for certain thing. They are headstrong about certain things. We can't give up a few things. So basically everyone is trying to look after their national interest. But I personally think that within that national interest, there is a common interest. I can assure you, Europe would not like to lose £300 billion annual exports. It's impossible for that. We know very clearly that European market worldwide is shrinking. This is a fact. There are growing economies. Most of them are former Commonwealth countries, or the part of Commonwealth rather to say so, wherein our trade naturally can increase. I think an agreeable solution should be the one we should look for. But if we have to exit without a deal, I honestly think Britain will be able to survive on its own, because services and the goods exported from Britain are much more valuable everywhere in the world than anything else. This is what I personally think. We should continue to negotiate. We should not give up on that. But we should be prepared really, that just in case we are not able to strike the deal. In honest opinion, having access to single market is beneficial to Europe and to us. Access to the worldwide goods is also important to us. So Britain has to strike a balance between what we do with Europe and what we do with the rest of the world. It has now become very important and crucial that we should look after the trade with the rest of the world as well.
Okay, Raj. Obviously, Britain wants to get the best possible deal that it can. But given the fact that the EU seems to be putting up obstacles in our way, do you think at the end of the day it's inevitable that certain businesses may end up going under, or certain people may end up losing their jobs?
Let's look at a few things in here, because the most important thing is people have voted to come out of European community, which is very evident, and people have spoken. Now, negotiating a trade deal requires whole lot of negotiation. Even if Article 50 is revoked, I don't think a 2-year period will be sufficient to negotiate everything. We might have extended period of time in negotiating a final settlement. Unfortunately, what it does, it puts the market in a very difficult situation. It creates a whole lot of uncertainty. But I think in the most difficult times, like the result of Brexit, which came in and pound took a steep dive, it actually benefited Britain. Having a favorable exchange rate worldwide, I can tell you, being in retail, I've realized that it added £2 billion to the retail sales in UK.
Okay.
So, really, we have this positive note. We will be able to retain most of the services, financial services, all the other businesses are conducted, will be as usual, because I don't think anybody would be able to lose a job just because two communities are participating, they have participating communities have actually decided to move away from each other. The world economical situation is not that great, but within that we are doing better. And I think a continuous engagement to get a proper settlement would be in the interest of and as much as European community and to the British society. I think we would continue to negotiate. If we come out with nothing, it's going to be business as usual. Because I personally think British economic system has developed itself, and it can do a trade with countries of the world much better than what it can do with Europe.
Okay, so the point there is that you believe Britain will survive, and it will rise above, and it will somehow cope with any obstacle.
Yes, it has.
Its way.
It has always. Let's look at when Second World War finished. We were a difficult nation. We had lost a lot of our colonies. We didn't have any business idea. Economy was down and inflation was rising. We joined the European community. It didn't benefit us at all. What benefited us was the reform carried out by Mrs. Thatcher. It created the free market economy. It created the prosperity in Britain, what it has got today. So the most important thing to understand is when the reforms were carried out, they were painful. They took some time, but once they started showing the effect, British economy started booming. It's got nothing to do with our association with Europe. So I have this view, and this is my personal view. If we were to walk away from Europe without getting anything, is not going to affect anything, because we have a very resilient market economy. The most important thing is, so far, generating a lot of trade deficit with Europe has not affected us. So I personally think if we have to go out of Europe, we will go out of Europe. We'll continue to trade with them, even if on the lesser favorable terms, but yet trading with the worldwide countries would do much better to Britain than what it is doing currently. That side, we have made more profit if we concentrate more, and we'll be able to achieve that. Now, some of the countries are ready to support us. Commonwealth countries would always stand by us. They are traditional allies. They look upon us. Their democracies are formed based on our principles. And I would say US currently is the biggest supporter. They are awaiting for the outcome what we get from Europe. Mm-hmm. And traditionally we have done a lot of business with the United States. So we don't have to fear anything. In all honesty, I'm relaxed from that side, and I'm pretty much confident that Britain will continue to do well. It doesn't have to be scared of anything. There is a lot of scaremongering going on. That's of no value. It doesn't mean anything. It's just scaring the people. It's just profiteering by pulling the market here and there. I would say in a simple words.
So, okay, Raj. Well, thank you for that. You seem to think that we're not going to go under. We're going to float. We're going to float. We're going to cope with all this, which is a very positive thinking. And of course, that's what we hope, is that Britain will cope with anything which is put in its way, and obviously we want the best outcome for the country. So what do you think is the best we can hope for, given the fact that at the moment we've had a lot of intransigence, we've had obstacles put in our way? What do you think is the best outcome we can hope for?
The best outcome for benefit of everyone would be a settled deal, a more wiser and rational approach, in as much as from our politicians and the European politicians. Problem what I see and where I see is, if Europe gives United Kingdom an easy exit, it might break up the European community. That's the reason they are not doing it. There is no other reason why they would not do it. And this is the primary consideration for the European politicians, that if Britain has taken decision to go away from European community, they are going to make this an exemplary penalizing, and that kind of mindset has to be changed.
Right. I mean, that is a very good point you just made. Obviously, the amount of money we're being asked for in order to exit the EU is absolutely huge amount, which it's hard for anybody to see that that's a reasonable proposition.
I mean, I would agree with you. So They ask for a lot of money. We have a trade deficit. So in all, if you see in between the fine lines, we have generated a national deficit, which is what affecting us. We are providing all the services. We have almost welcomed Europeans from all the countries who are living, doing a very good job, prospering over here. We have never ever differentiated. Truly speaking, Brexit has been simmering because in 70s all the facts were not given to the people. So the discontent was already brewing. And what happened when the opportunity came for a referendum? People spoke.
Yeah.
This is what is very important to understand, that we were told when we went in that it was just a trading union. Britain is a sovereign nation. It has its laws. It has almost invented everything in the world. You name it, we did it. And we can continue to do so many things in the future because it's the country where innovations take place. So we don't have to be scared of anything. We don't have to feel threatened of the scaremongering which is going on. We don't have to. We as a nation have survived the Second World War, which was imposed on us. We sacrificed so many people to liberate Europe. And we actually love Europe. So I think Europe has to understand and deal with this in a similar manner, what passion and sacrifice we have made for them.
Okay, Raj. Well, I think you put it very well. Obviously, the debate will continue to go on for some time, and it still remains to be seen exactly what the ultimate outcome of all of this will be. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, I would certainly like to quote Sir Winston Churchill because the situation is very much the same. The first quote I would say, what he said was, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts, because the history is written by the victors." And the second most important thing, what he said, the maxim of the British people is business as usual.
Right. Okay, Raj. Well, thank you for that. I think we're going to end it there. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much for coming. And I hope the viewers have all enjoyed listening to Raj talk. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.